különleges este, és még hogy jól láttam, mindjárt magyarul talán a bevezetés, az előadás angol. Ez különleges este, mert elég ritkán esik meg magyar egyetemen, hogy Párizsi Kutatóegyetemről érkezzen professzor rendes egyetemi előadást tartani. Most ebben a megközelítésben van, és szerencsével részünk, hogy Olivier Poncet hajóztasson be önöknek Párizsból, az École Sártól, ami érkezett hozzánk, ami régebben ugye a Sorbonnehoz tartozott, most pedig ugye a Párizsi Kutatóegyetemi Szövetségnek egy önálló külön kutató egyeteme. Poncet professzor is végzett 93-ban és 94-ben. Kutatásainak fő területe azonban a Vatikánhoz kötő 95 és 98 között volt ő a Római Francia Intézetnek ösztöndíjasa és máig tagja. Nem biztos, hogy nagyon tudjuk még, hogy van egy tudományos adatbázis, ahol a nemzetközi kutatásnak jeles tagjai, ugye az internet segítségével is meg tudjuk ismerni hallgatók számára. Ezt a lehetőséget szeretném ugye Poncet professzornak a további bemutatására bemutatni. Van ez az Akadémia Edu portál, amely beütünk és az adott névvel elátjuk, akkor már is ugye bárkinek, aki számít a nemzetközi tudományban, és látjuk, hogy stimmelnek az adatok, ugye a profilját meg tudjuk találni, a szószaporítás helyett az érdeklődő hallgatóságot ehhez a profilhoz. Igazán itt találhatók a fontosabb publikációk, nem csak listaszerűen, hanem letölthető formában, és itt található mindenkinek a föltöltötte az életrajza. Láthatjuk, hogy Sorbonni doktorálás után egy nagyon szertágazó és sokoldalú tudományos pályát futott be, és tényleg rendkívül a megtiszteltetés, hogy elfogadta a meghívásunkat. Jó 2 évvel ezelőtt leszerveztük már, hogy be tudjuk a programban ezt illeszteni. Aki további részletek iránt érdeklődik, Poncet professzor kutatásai kapcsán, holnap 2 órakor lesz egy műhely szeminárium. Ugye szintén még nem mondtam a lényeget, a Fraknói Kutatócsoportnak a szervezésében és az elméleti támogatásában, mint most is, itt szemben a 106-os teremben, ott tovább részleteket is megtudhatunk, nyilván főleg a Fraknói Kutatócsoport profiljához illően a vatikáni kutatásairól, néhány konkrét bemutatásra kerül. A mostani kurzus igazából egyik kutatási területet a 16. századi Franciaországnak az intézménytörténete illesztve fogja számunkra megtartani egy nagyon különleges francia sajátosságról, ugye, amit gallicanizmusnak nevezünk, és alapvető kurzusunk, amihez ez az előadás kapcsolódik, az nem más, mint a zsinatoknak a története. Múlt héten érkeztünk el Konstanzhoz, ugye, ahol a tanácskozások egy nagyon különleges rend, ugye, a nemzeti elv szerint történtek, és tulajdonképpen akár az anglikanizmus, akár ugye a hungaricánizmus, már ez annyira nem ismert fogalom, akár pedig a gallicanizmus ebből az időből, a 15. század első feléből datálódik. Úgyhogy hogyan is alakul ki, hát mindig a történeti tárgyatai, arról fog most professzor úr nekünk előadást tartani, jegyzeteljünk, figyeljünk, remélhetőleg a YouTube csatornánkon elérhető lesz az előadás, és ha lesz értelmes kérdésünk, ezt az előadás végén minden szépen megy. Nagyon köszönöm, és nagyon örülök, hogy ilyen szép számban összejöttünk.
As you can hear, that on the words I know in English, I must apologize to have only these words to say how glad and very proud I am to be here among you in this beautiful city with my friend and colleague Vilmos, who had the great idea to invite me to to tell you about gallicanism. It is useful to have French to speak about gallicanism because he knows or he tries to know what is gallicanism. The disadvantage to have a French Africanism is the language, because French are now not very well known for being well-known good foreign language speaker. So, the introduction will be about a tentative definition of the gallicanism. In order to understand gallicanism, it may be necessary to start by saying what it is not, or what it is wrongly believed to be. It is not a belief, it is not a confession, it is not a religious rite, it is not a social behavior, and above all, it is not a single movement. There is an infinity of variations and nuances of gallicanism that should forbid the historian to speak simply of gallicanism. There are episcopal, ecclesiastical, royal, parliamentary, legal, scholar gallicanism. All these forms are not exclusive without being totally confused. Then the very word of gallicanism is, like almost the words in ism, an invention, a neologism of the 19th century. It appears in the French language only from the years 80s, 20s. Previously, under the Ancien Régime, we used to talk about Gallican or Gallican freedoms. Let us look at some definitions. The Dictionary of Catholic Theology in 1915 states this about Gallicanism: set of tendencies, practices, and especially doctrines relating to the constitution and extent of spiritual power, especially widespread in former France and opposed in various measures to certain prerogatives of the Pope, with regard to the Church and the Church toward the State. Another definition is that of the historian Jean de Vilmos. He says, Gallicanism was an effort to limit the Holy See's interference in the religious life of the country by relying on previously acquired rights. The various Gallicanisms reflected, on the other hand, a certain national mentality and contained, beneath the doctrines, a not negligible part of irrational. I propose to you the following definition, which corresponds to the spirit in which I place this intervention. Gallicanism is first an historical phenomenon that takes its source and developments in Catholic France between the 15th and the 19th century. It has a form of apogee, an historical apogee, between the 16th and 17th centuries. One of the points common to all the tendencies that claim it concerns the place that should be recognized to the Pope in the political and religious life of France, which is not the same or exactly the question of the Church and State, at least for a long time. The so-called Gallican freedoms don't correspond to a stable and official body of doctrine, but rather to a common background of precepts and principles based on sources of a very diverse nature. Gallicanism sets limits. It doesn't exclude a priori. It is, for example, much more an anti-Romanism than an anti-Papism. It is important, in fact, to mark right away a real difference between Gallicanism and other movements of opposition to papal authority, as we can observe in England or in Germany. Considered from this angle, Gallicanism would be devoid of any originality. Certainly, the Gallicans prefer to speak of the Church of France rather than the Church in France. But this must not be misleading. On the contrary, one can even argue that Gallicanism is fiercely attached not to break with Rome. In some respects, it could be caricatured by saying that the Gallican is more papist than the Pope, to whom he reproaches for betraying the spirit of the Catholic Church. This is why the Chancellor Alan Talon, an historian that you have in the bibliography, that Gallicanism is essentially a vision of the world, and therefore constitute a part of the identity of the medieval and early modern France, and under some respects, the modern France. The different types of Gallicanism don't therefore merge into another. To grasp some of the inflections of Gallicanism, it is first necessary to clearly understand who are the actors, theoreticians, and practitioners at the same time. There are mainly four. The first, the Church of France itself. This church is not united naturally, and it is traversed by great divisions, classically between the superior clergy, bishops, abbots, and also, and more humble ecclesiastics on the other part, but also between those with different forms of autonomy against all episcopal power, cathedral chapters or regular orders that demand forms of autonomy against the bishop. Within it, Gallicanism can be used for different purposes, depending on whether it is a question of reasoning as a whole, Church of France against the papacy, and or in a more fragmented way, the chapters against the bishop. Second actor, the king. The king embodies the sovereign power that first claims to be fully sovereign in the temporal, a struggle that extends until the 17th century against the papacy, that can be very interventionist, including the question of succession to the crown, mainly in times of the religious civil wars in the 16th century. But it also claims to be able to dominate the church, and the king's subjects are certainly Catholics, but they are his subjects. Third, the magistrates, especially of the sovereign courts, in the first place the Parliament of Paris. They support the king in his desire to set limits to the power of the Pope, but parliamentary Gallicanism has its own autonomy, which doesn't always meet the very political position of the king, who may need or want to accommodate the Pope, for example by the Concordat, that makes parliamentary Gallicanism come to oppose the two powers, the king and the Pope. Last and not least, the Faculty of Theology of Paris, which is often reduced to the College of Sorbonne, a highly respected authority in the Catholic world that has accompanied the growth and crisis phases of Gallicanism from its medieval origins to its modernist expression in the 18th century. Many of the ideas about church-state-papacy relations, broadly speaking, first surfaced within universities. It was in theology universities that Gallicans and their ultramontanes rivals most frequently confronted each other in the 17th century. But it is also forced to defend its own privileged universitary privileges against the king, against the bishops, or against parliamentarians, so that its Gallicanism has also a corporatist connotation, with a position that is more and more out of the game. I would add a fifth actor, without whom we can't understand nothing of this long story, the French society. Through the interplay of beneficial systems which circulate at all levels in many families and throughout the territory, goods, incomes, and the authority of ecclesiastical functions, from the bishoprics to the simple chapel, including the abbeys, the cures, or the canonicates, the Catholic Church constitutes an extremely dense social and territorial network, especially in France. This social cement constitutes an extremely, at the same time, a desirable stake and a ferment of revolt, without which gallicanism would not have found neither to feed every day its members, nor to feed its theories. Ordinarily, the historical presentation of gallicanism is reduced to the dialogue with Rome, and it is therefore the moment of crisis with the papacy that marks its history. I prefer to adopt a presentation that looks successively at the relationship with this or that other notion or historical movement, in a progression as chronological as possible. This order was chosen for pedagogical reasons, is a lesson, but we must never forget that what was debated for the first time doesn't cease to be debated afterwards, even if new problems occupy the front of the stage. Here it is necessary to reason more by sedimentation and by adding layers that do not cancel each other. My discourse wouldn't like to be too dogmatic, and would like here to adopt a figure dear to Ruby Roberts, the framing overflow. When one thinks to hold Gallicanism, it is already elsewhere. First, Gallicanism and nationalism. Effectively, at the origin of Gallicanism, there is nationalism, or more clearly, the affirmation of a political sovereignty in the Kingdom of France, which is independent, at least at the temporal level, of the papal authority. Gallicanism has sometimes been traced back to the Carolingian times, and the Gallicans of the 17th century claimed the solidity of their theories by going back often to the fathers of the Church. I assure you, I will not go back so far, but I will content myself with contextualizing the emergence of a historical continuity that begins in the 14th century. The reign of Philip the Fair corresponds to an important moment in the affirmation of royal power in the kingdom first, but also on the theoretical plane by the distancing of the Pope and his claims to intervene in the Kingdom of France. This tension, which led to a crisis at the time of the Pope Boniface VIII, culminated in the famous episode of Anagni, which is very near from Rome, where the envoy of the King of France, Guillaume de Nogaret, protested the arms in hand against the king's excommunication and brought the Pope a summons to appear before the General Council. If the episode didn't have the violence that was lent to it, the protest, which was that of Nogaret, transformed into a capital fact in history, which has been very important in the Gallican imagination. A few years later, the arrival of the first French Pope in Avignon changed the situation. For more than half of the century, relations between the papacy and the King of France were rather good. The kings couldn't count on a form of objective alliance with the pontiff instead on the backs of the world. The popes was all the more accepted since the French were among the great beneficiaries of the papacy of Avignon, which de facto made the Italians move aside from the benefits of the Church of France. This conjunctural advantage made the 14th century a constant favorable point of reference in the Gallican history of the papacy. The Great Schism broke out in 1378 on the occasion of a double papal election with the backdrop of mutual disputes between the two camps of cardinals, divided Christianity for some 40 years, during which several popes clashed, recognized or not by the princes and countries of the West. Gallicanism finds its strength there, and even its strength in meetings that were convened to discuss the attitude to be adopted and the camp to be chosen. the schism favored the affirmation of the Gallican Church, capable of choosing its destiny. A meeting of the clergy of France held in 1398 decided to withdraw from the poor the papal benefits and taxes and to allocate them temporarily to the King of France. This amounted to evade his obedience, to give the king power in religious matters, and to institute a form of autonomous government of the Church of France, which recognized de facto only a spiritual authority to the Pope of Avignon. A new substantial of obedience was decided in 1307 by the University of Paris, which first added to the decision of the clergy the support of theologians. The crisis was resolved at the Council of Constance in 1470, which deposed the various elected popes and facilitated the return of unity of Christianity through the election of Pope Martin V. With this first experience of separatism and the government of the temporal interests of the Church of France, King Charles VII decided in 1438 to promulgate the text, the Pragmatic Sanction, debated with a meeting of the clergy of France in Bourges, in the center of the country. This was an objective alliance of the king and the clergy, supported by most parliaments, to limit the prerogatives of the Pope, especially on the appointment of to the bishoprics left to the election by the chapters, and the drastic reduction of papal taxation. It was based on the more general principle that, I quote, in France, the absolute and unlimited power of the Pope doesn't exist. It is really during this period that the gallicanism of parliaments is gradually being forged, which in its jurisprudence facilitates, still slowly, devices that allow the clergy of France to free themselves from Roman and more broadly ecclesiastical decisions. The best known of this mechanism, the appel of as of abuse, appel comme d'abus, allowed the cleric dissatisfied with the decision of an episcopal tribunal officiality to appeal to the superior court of the king, which could annul or invalidate it. He carries within himself a form of juridical gallicanism, which, on certain sides, comes to collide not only with the authority of the Pope, but also with that of the Gallican bishops. Another witness the fact that Gallicanism is sometimes his best enemy. At the Council of Constance, ecclesiology developed strongly in favor of the conciliar theses, which were then pushed very far, if only to avoid giving the advantage to even more radical theses like those of John Wycliffe or Janus. Among the most active council fathers were the French Pierre Dailly and Jean Gerson, Chancellor of the University of Paris and very Gallican, who favored shared views in the Kingdom of France. The vote in the decree Fraknói in October 1417 stipulated regular meetings of the Council, which means taking away the power of initiative and convocation from the Pope himself. The pragmatic sanction of Bourges was promulgated during a moment of conciliar weakening during the interminable Council of Basel and then Lausanne. Without being a direct consequence of conciliarism, Gallicanism is perfectly accommodating and prosperous in the shadow of the obliteration of the papal monarchy and of a royal power that favors it objectively. The instrumentalization of conciliarism by the French monarchy reached its most successful expression at the Council of Pisa in 1511. Everything begins with a classical political opposition on the military ground between two powers, the King of France, Louis XII and Pope Julius II. To make the Pope yield, the king relies on his clergy. He convenes a National Assembly in 1510, which highly reaffirms the Gallican freedoms and renews his attachment to the pragmatic sanction, condemns the errors of the reigning Pope, and proclaims the superiority of the General Council over the Pope, in line with the history of Christianity for a century now. A council was convened in 1511 at the initiative of cardinals opposed to the Pope, including some French. The Pope's political and ecclesiological response, the Holy League with Venice and Aragon on one part, and the convocation of a council in Rome on the other part, was the reason for the French initiative. The council, which opened in Pisa in November 1511, is largely a Gallican national council, since the French dominate from far away. At the very moment where the council fathers of Pisa pronounced his removal, the Pope triumphed in Rome at the Lateran Council. His triumph was complete when, years later, King Louis XII condemned the decision of Pisa and hurried to the Pope. The Gallican conciliarism was defeated not only by the Roman pontiff, who, without knowing it, inaugurated a long sequence of Roman centralization, but also by the King of France, that the military defects forced to release his Gallican prelates. Soon after, the King of France emphasized the end of this ecclesiastical Gallicanism, which had believed that it could become the arbiter of the popes and temporal sovereigns. In 1516, in fact, the new king, Francis I, concluded the Concordat of Bologna with Pope Leo X. The cards of the game were heavily prebalanced. Henceforth, the king agreed with the Pope on the backs of the clergy of France, as marked by one of the most emblematic measures of the Concordat, which gave to the King of France the right to appoint bishops and abbots, and the Pope the power to confirm them by the apostolic provision. The clergy of France was the great loser of this reversal of roles, and for more than a century the Concordat became the original sin of the French monarchy of the Renaissance. The most resolute opposition came from the guardian of the judicial temple of Gallicanism, I mean the Parliament of Paris. At that time, no royal text could enter into judicial force, if it was not the subject of legal publicity for the registration in the registers of Parliament. The same was true of every papal bull, which could not, by virtue of the privilege of the Gallicans, have the force of law in the kingdom, if it had not been included among the legislative acts authorized by the king's magistrates. That is to say, registered. For 10 years, until 1527, Parliament prevented the adoption of the Concordat, against the will of the king and against that of the Pope. This was probably the highest and more independent affirmation of Gallicanism of the royal power at that time. Despite attempts or threats to convene a national council, which corresponded to moments of extreme tension with Rome, conciliarism no longer seemed to be a feasible path for the monarchy, whose role was becoming more and more important in the conduct of the affairs of the Church of France, which was obliged by Concordat. Conciliarism, after being one of the pinnacles of royal and ecclesiastical Gallicanism in the 15th century, became a major point of discord. For the clergy, the General Council must be convened by the Pope. For the parliamentarism, the National Assembly must be convened by the King. However, if the doctrine of conciliar supremacy has hardly survived its appearance. And if it fades almost everywhere since the second half of the 15th century, it remains as a sort of permanent image in the debates of the Church of France because of gallicanism. As Blaise Pascal, mathematicians, philosophers, mathematics, said in the 17th century, I quote, "There is almost only France, in France, where it is permissible to say that the council is above the Pope." Moreover, as we shall see, the decrees of Constance will be quoted in the Declaration of 1682 as, I quote, "observed religiously and without failure by the Gallican Church." The movements of religious reform were carried by a strong criticism of the papal power, which could only meet the adherents of the Gallicans. Yet, despite the sometimes violent opposition in Rome, Gallicanism has not facilitated the transition to the Reformation and the dissolution of the bond with the papacy. One can even argue that it was a fairly effective bulwark to prevent the passage of France in the Reformed camp. Anti-clericalism is a unifying component of Gallicanism, including in the clergy. But this critical attitude, more polemical than really directed towards theory and doctrine, was insufficient to lead the kingdom into reform. The beneficial system, which ensured the prosperity and existence of so many families, with a social capillarity that affected almost all circles, may have slowed down the transition to reform. But the attitude of the king and the clergy of France, who composed a large part of his advisors at the age of the prelates of state, probably worked harder in the direction of a resistance where Gallicanism was not for nothing. The kings of France are known for having found alliances denounced as anti-Catholic or anti-Christian by their Catholic opponents, especially among the Habsburgs. The proximity with the Protestant princes of the empire and the conventions with the Turk are first of all geopolitical operations. They can also be read as being in the political field a form of freedom claimed by the Gallican Church in the religious field. It is certain, in any case, that for contemporary observers and opponents of France, these strategic choices, which do not borrow anything from traditional Gallicanism, have amplified the idea of an isolated church within Catholicism. The kings of France of the Renaissance nevertheless took their part early, active and constant in the struggle against the first Reformed movements. Since the 1520s, heavy decisions have been taken: death sentences, books seized and burned, bans on assembly, etc. Decisions that make the kings of France spearheads the fight against heresy. The Sorbonne and the Parliament are at the side of the monarchy, and the Gallican unanimity in the struggle against the reform finds perhaps its limits only in the clergy and episcopate, where pastoral considerations sometimes lead to greater understanding. However, at no time was there any question of establishing or re-establishing, if you remember the courts of the Middle Ages, the courts of the Roman Inquisition in France. It was first of all a principle, Gallican principle in this case. Just as the nuncios had not a jurisdiction in France, in the same way, the Pope could not establish a judicial system parallel to that of the king in the kingdom. And it is here the magistrates of the king who showed themselves the fiercest opponents and the most vigilant guardians of the Gallican dogma. When in 1557 the King of France seemed close to want to facilitate the establishment of an inquisition, at least, that is to say, an extraordinary court to judge the crimes of heresy, Parliament opposed it, not out of concern for tolerance towards Protestants, but rather out of fear that it would be an open door to a future papal presence in France. One of the great questions of French historiography is, why did France choose to remain in the Catholic camp and not change in the Reformation? Fernand Braudel called it the problem of the problems. Gallicanism doesn't explain everything, but it has also played its role, deeper and more decisive than we think. During what was called the Gallican crisis of 1551, the Kingdom of France was close to join the English example. Anglicanism indeed had affinity with the Gallicanism, but in reality, the model of Anglican reform acted rather as a repellent. First, for historical matters, the English remained the hereditary enemy of France. Then, Henry VIII passes for a tyrant in the eyes of the French. Finally, the Gallicans sensed the dangers of a state church, where the clergy only changed their masters and where freedoms were no longer guaranteed. At the beginning of 1551, however, the king had called for a reform of his clergy and had declared that he wished to convene a national council. The Pope had not been consulted, and he interpreted this decision as the march towards a heavier solution, in this case, the stages to a schism. The Pope, but also the European reformers, took seriously the idea that France was on the road to the establishment of national patriarchate. Perhaps it was a manner by the king to influence the Pope's Italian geopolitics and to express his disapproval of the conditions of the General Council submitted to the Emperor. The king has repeatedly protested that he is against the schism. Can we believe him? I don't know. On the other hand, the Gallican prelates found that their decisions went too far, and that the hatred of Julius III was not the hatred of the papacy, a man, an institution, as going to say for the Gallicans. They didn't really support the views of the king, who preferred to deal with the Pope. At the end, the crisis will have revealed in its own way what Gallicanism is. It is first of all a balance between universalism and nationalism, between the spirit of unity, we were, and the spirit of freedom. At the end of the religious wars, the confessional division between Protestants and Catholics was accentuated by the quarrel over succession to the throne. The Gallicans were rather in the royal camp, alongside the Protestants who followed Henry IV, himself a Protestant, when he arrived on the throne in 1589. But it is also on the side of the Catholic cliques, especially in Parliament, faced with the resolute opposition of the papacy to the royal camp. The spectre of a Gallican church led by an independent patriarch briefly surfaced around the time of Henry IV's conversion. Here again, it is not forbidden to think that the king allowed the idea and ambition to flourish among a few prelates interested in the consequences of this revolution. The political logic of the king is in fact more Gallican than his spirit. At the general stance of the League, Gertrude in 1593 to find a Catholic queen to France, the Parliament of Paris takes a firm stand in favor of a French king, but not necessarily Catholic, and make the choice to respect first and foremost the ordinary laws of succession. But a month later, Henry IV converted to Catholicism in Saint-Denis. It is the conversion that regulates everything. The conversion is not necessary from the point of view of succession legitimacy, but it is necessary for the establishment of a bond between the kingdom and its past, and with the universal through Rome. In this sense, Henry IV respected and followed the Gallican logic of the Kingdom of France. On the other hand, when he granted special status to Protestants by the Edict of Nantes in 1598, he introduced a tolerance that didn't necessarily please all Gallicans. One could have considered that the Edict of Nantes could constitute in itself a Gallican victory, since France is then the only country of Europe of this time where there is no principle cuius regio, eius religio. But at the same time, the Gallicans are not happy as Catholics. A good example of this is provided by Parliament President Antoine Séguier, who had shown himself a resolute opponent of the ultramontane Jesuits, but whom Henry IV had to exile in 1599 to Venice as ambassador, so that he would not oppose the registration of the edict. Once again, Gallicanism is not where we expect it. The paradox is no less great with the introduction of the Tridentine reform, that is my further point. One might have thought that the affirmation of papal centralization and the advance of Roman absolutism would exacerbate Gallicanism. That is what happened, but it also accentuated its division. Gallicanism is not a third way between Protestantism and Tridentinism, but it constitutes by itself the affirmation that several ways are possible within the framework of the same church. Refusing or challenging the Tridentine reform is the same logic as refusing the Protestant reform. It is a question of discarding a form of confessionalism discipline, because confessional thought is unifying and cannot yield to other moral imperative than its own. But this alone is unbearable for the Gallicans, who place their freedoms very high. Despite this, it is undeniable that the Gallicanism of the French bishops is not antagonistic with the reform that is being implemented in Trento. Not only is the General Council a counterpower of the Church for the Gallicans, but they have also succeeded in making their views prevail in the adoption of several decrees. They certainly had to renounce going too far. For example, the Cardinal of Lorraine proposes to define the Pope as, I quote, the pastor of the churches, particular churches, rather than the pastor of the universal church. This is a very Gallican vision of things that was obviously not adopted. But on the whole, the episcopalism defended to Trent married after rather well with a certain Gallicanism, which maintained that the bishop was master in his diocese. And it is not surprising that during the General States of 1614 and 15, the French prelates showed deep respect for the policy. France, in general, refuses the absolutist evolution of the Roman Curia and wishes to preserve a traditional image of the Pope, limited to his person. First, the decrees of the cardinal congregations have no value in France, as recalls the maxim in Gallia index non viget, and only their transformation into papal bulls can possibly allow the application of their dispositions. What the Gallicans, clergy and parliaments, hardly bear is that the proposed reform is imported from outside and therefore imposed. When it came to receive the decrees of the Council, Parliament of Paris began by declaring that they were unacceptable to French traditions. If Parliament does not receive them, and it has never received them, they are, in fact, inapplicable in the kingdom. In reality, the decrees will be well implemented and the treaty reform will generally be implemented in France. First, the king transcribed some of the decrees, the most Gallican part, I would say, into his legislation, especially in the Ordinance of Loi in 1579, for example, the text for the marriage. Then the clergy itself took charge of the implementation of the decrees by means of the provincial councils, which received them in the dioceses concerned, so much so that at the beginning of the 17th century, most of the French provinces support the conciliar legislation of Trento. The official and national recognition intervenes only in 1615 through an institution which has acquired nothing to do with gallicanism, but which passes as the collective expression of the first order of the kingdom, the clergy, the Assembly of the Clergy of France. Set up in 1561 to vote financial assistance to the monarchy, this representative and elected body becomes something other than mere time events. It is an institution that displays both the Pope and the King in reality. Neither the crown nor the papacy wished to see the French Church establish powerful institutional sources of independent decision-making. It was it which Guilford in 1615 officially welcomed the Tridentine decrees. This reception of 1615, whose historiography has sometimes made a fundamental date, can first be read less as a burst of Tridentinism, since decrees are applied in fact for decades, that as the affirmation of a Gallican church that chooses its destiny without the consent of the king and adhering freely to council decrees. The France of the end of the wars of religion and of the first 17th century willingly thinks itself as proudly Gallican. Even the Leaguers, ancestors of the devots of the 17th century, retain an old Gallican background. One of their most extreme theoreticians, the parish priest Jean Boucher, first proposes in 1590 to entrust the deposition of unworthy kings to the universal church and not to the Pope. In general, however, Gallicanism is then combined with a certain ultramontane thrust, which is primarily due to the fundamental convergences between the episcopate and the papacy in the field of reform. The French Catholic people are more than ever eager to recognize the Pope, what reform have denied them, namely the power of the keys, which derives from his status as a vicar of Christ on earth. After Trento, pardons, indulgences, jubilees are very demanded by the bishops and even the king. From this point of view, the Pope won the game in the Gallican France. The irreducible attachment to the person of the Pope allows France to play a mediator role in the crisis of the Interdict of Venice in 1606 and 7 between the Republic and the papacy. Who could be a better ally of France than Venice, which makes the distancing of the papacy as a political line of conduct? To find a way of reconciling Venetian and Rome powers is ultimately to claim the legitimacy of a Gallican view for the world. which has become an opportune export article. Why then did historiography and in general opinion retain this period marked by a relative Roman exaltation, a Gallican shift of France? Beyond the action of the monarchy and the state itself, the first 17th century was the occasion of very tense clashes between the defenders of uncompromising gallicanism and opponents anxious to make prevail more Roman view. The former prevailed over the latter and imposed their victorious vision. It's a classical of the history. Then, as often happens, it is under the pressure of a Tridentine Catholic reform that the corpus of Gallican freedoms consolidated itself in an intense search and critical editing of texts. The construction is progressive and proceeds by sedimentation of legislative texts and jurisprudence of parliaments. The most notable publications of the Liberté de l'Église gallica, Liberties of the Gallican Church, take place after the entry of Henry IV in Paris in 1594 by Pierre Coutu, and at the time of the ministry of Richelieu by Pierre Dupuy in 1639. Two works which have sometimes been more disturbing to the royal power than they have been useful to it. Gallicanism presents itself as a specific culture at the crossroads of law, ecclesiology, and history. It participated in the intellectual and institutional revolution of the 16th and 17th centuries, which gave a very historical aspect to legal science. He invites us to look to the past to find a precedent and to edit historical evidence that legitimates an autonomous authority. By making themselves historians, and historians as critical as possible of their sources, the Gallicans showed a certain archival positivism to define the law of the state and its relationship to the church by insisting on an authentic heritage and continuity with the origins. Gallicanism is therefore based on custom and tradition, possibly proven by sources, quotation, etc., while Rome is based on a transcendent norm capable of correcting this custom. The norm is defined by the Pope, the Council, even the bishops. Only royal authority, made of both transcendence and history, was able to overcome this clash of cultures. For a long time, the Gallican freedoms invoked against the papal power were a form of bulwark against the evolution of a national church towards a state church. At the end of the 16th century and in the 17th century, the question of the place of the state in the civil and religious life of the kingdom became crucial at the very moment where papal absolutism was being strengthened. From then on, the Gallicans, whether clerics or magistrates, were caught between wood and bark. The royal threat to the Gallican harmony of the world between national consciousness and religious sentiment is not or no more Roman absolutism, but rather the growth of the state, which breaks with the balance of powers, guaranteeing Gallican freedoms. In fact, the advent of the Bourbon dynasty with Henry IV constituted a form of rupture. The Roman absolution of Henry IV in 1595 and the Edict of Nantes 3 years later imposed both against the radical Gallicans, put the king at the center of the game. Rapprochement with Rome and confessional tolerance have made the sovereign an actor that is mastering his destiny. This movement, more coherent than it seems, was accompanied by a form of sacralization of power, rather than a secularization of the monarchy. The state absorbed the church, rather than separated from it. Starting from Henry IV, the king has regularly chosen his confessors among the members of the Society of Jesus, who, in doing so in France, suffered a kind of Stockholm syndrome, if I can use this image, by adhering to the monarchical project, to the point that Pierre Blais spoke of the Gallican Jesuits. The Gallican prelates stopped criticism the Concordate and its effects because the king showed himself to be more attentive to the imperatives of the Catholic reform in the choice of its bishops. It now seems possible to fill the words with the king and the Pope, because this work has become that of the state. This transition, obviously, did not take place in silence, let alone with the applause of the entire political and intellectual society of the time. The French theologians particularly out-debated the relationship between royal power and pontifical power. The gallicanism of Sorbonne is the conception of the Church of the Faculty of Theology in Paris. Since the beginning of the 17th century, two perspectives have cohabitated inside the faculty. The former conciliarism, reactivated by the Syndic and Maurice with his Libellus de Ecclesiastica Politica Potestate of 1611, and the Romanism defended by its colleague and opponent André Duval, with his treaty in 1614. Mutualism is a doctrine that intends to apply the principle of community governance to all levels of ecclesial organization. The mutualism is confused with the Gallican doctrine in that it considers that the Pope is subject, in terms of temporal and dogmatic authority, to the Council. Therefore, to all the bishops representing the Christian people. But the doctrine doesn't remain at this first level. First, in the same way, the bishop is subject to the diocesan synod, and first to all the parish priests representing the Christian people of the diocese. We understand that mutualism resets the favors of the lower clergy. And finally, on the third level, the parish priest is subject to the parish assembly, that is, to the entire Christian people of the parish. The discussion around the ritualist and Gallican phases have made the Faculty of Theology of Paris a microcosm of the broader debates of post-Tridentine Catholicism in search of an ecclesiological stabilization that the Council of Trent was not able to achieve. Every major crisis, English anti-Romanism, Jansenism, Pietism, and also ism, requires serious questions. Who is the judge of controversies, Pope or Council? What is the authority of the papal decision? Is it infallible? What is the role of the bishops? That of the Church in general, and also. In the faculty, doctors and students like you try to answer. Each one proposes its interpretation. Some are rejected, others are accepted, first forming a position proper to the body of theologians. Their conception is certainly abstract, but it finds echoes either in the life of the Church or in the political debate of the time. A debate arbitrated and nourished by the king and his churches. The beginning of the ministry of Richelieu was first the occasion of a libel war in 1624-26 under the leadership of the cardinal minister, who mobilized his own polemists. It completed to the advantage of the royal power this sequence of clashes between ultra-Gallicans and Romanists. Richelieu and his following him Mazarin, who was far from being a speculative and theologian, gave precedence to views which were those of modern reason of state, which were not those of gallicanism. In fact, it has objectively slowly done in France. The paradox never ceases there to question. The reason of state constitutes a form of hypocritical tyranny, I quote Anton. The Tyrrhenian Gallicans who believe to triumph, a tyranny whose best representatives are cardinal prelates of the Roman Church. There has been much talk so far of paradoxical situations. Louis XIV, in his dealings with the Pope, is a paradox by himself. His entire policy is initially aimed at pushing Gallicanism into its ultimate virtualities, integrating it with the absolutist claims of monarchic power. Then, in a final phase of his reign, to restore to the Pope a central place in his management of the affairs of the Church of France. Louis XIV was also wanted to rule the field of theology, upset fragile balances that have permanently affected the relations between Gallicans and royal power. Early in the period of his personal government, the Sun King defied papal power as no other French monarch, perhaps, had done before him. By a declaration of 1673, the king extended the right of regal to the whole kingdom, that is, the right of temporal regal, which allows the king to enjoy the income of a bishopric during the vacancy of the siege, and the spiritual regal, which at the same time allows the sovereign to provide for the ecclesiastical benefices, which depend on the episcopal collation. Two bishops from the south of France opposed to the royal decision and were supported by the Pope, while the Sorbonne and the Parliament of Paris supported the king. In 1680, in Pamiers, in the south of France, after the bishop's death, clash between the chapter and the king's intendant for the succession and management of the temporal. To settle this matter, the king convened an extraordinary clergy assembly in 1681, which brought together prelates who had changed from those of 1614. The defense of episcopalism first passed for a close alliance with the royal power, which had not ceased to support them. From them, it was possible to praise the merits of a monarchy of divine right, of which Bossuet, the Bishop of Meaux, has summed up the principle with a maxim, I quote, "To disobey the king is to disobey God himself." This is a quotation of Bossuet. A year later, 1682, he came out with the Declaration of the Four Articles, largely written by Bossuet himself. The declaration states that, first, the Supreme Pontiff has only one spiritual authority. The princes are therefore not subject to the authority of the Church in temporal matters. The Pope cannot judge kings or lay them down. The subjects of the king cannot be relieved from the oath of obedience. Second, the use of papal power is regulated by the canons of the Church, but beside them, the principles and customs of the Gallican Church, which have always existed, must remain in force. Third, the Ecumenical Council, a meeting of all the bishops of Christianity, makes decisions that have a higher value than those of the Pope, whose authority is therefore limited by that of the Council General. Fourth, in matters of dogma, the Pope is infallible only with the consent of the Universal Church. The declaration had to be registered in all the king's courts. It was forbidden to teach the contrary doctrine in the kingdom. Professors of theology have to subscribe to it and commit themselves to teaching it, and it should serve as a subject of examination for future priests. In retaliation, Innocent XI refused to invest the bishops appointed by Louis XIV in accordance with the Concordat. in 1688, 35 of the 110 bishoprics were without titulars, and the antagonisms between royalty and papacy made religious life chaotic in part of the kingdom. The conflict ended in 1693 with a compromise. A new Pope, Innocent XII, accepted the extension of the temporal regal and canonically invested the members of the French clergy, while the king pronounced the spiritual regal and the teaching of the Declaration of the Four Articles, which also corresponded in a certain way to requests from the theologians. The Sorbonne protested, in fact, against the Capital Articles of 1682 because it removed the historical liberty of teaching, which is very precious, as you know, in the universities. In a certain way, the Pope can then post a victorious report, while the king temporarily witnessed gallicanism without any other gain than the reaffirmation of royal absolutism in the matter of regal. In 1685, Louis XIV normalized the situation of France in Europe by joining the principle cuius regio, eius religio. The king revokes the Edict of Nantes, forbids Protestantism in France, and thus renounces the policy of tolerance established by his grandfather, Louis IV. In doing so, he satisfies the Catholics, but indirectly, he weakens again the Gallican traditions. By swallowing religion and church, the state commits here an infidelity with the history of the kingdom since the Middle Ages. The state becomes a religious end in itself and participates in what Marcel Gauchet called the disenchantment of the world. The sovereign forces Gallicanism to become exclusively royal, and at the same time thinks that it can govern the Church of France without it, and relying on it. The paradox is once again tested with the overpower that is the Pope, as the long Unigenitus crisis proved, provoking a lasting opposition of Gallicanism, ecclesiastics and parliamentarians against royal authority. In the fate of the Gallicanism in the modern era, Jansenism occupied an ambiguous position. After having been a privileged target of the Gallican prelates in the 17th century, it became as a form of rallying point for the Gallican phases in the kingdom whose sovereign had chosen to return to an objective alliance with the Holy See. The very definition of Jansenism is problematic because Jansenists have rarely assumed this name, considering themselves only as Catholics. They possess, however, some characteristic features, such as the will to stick strictly to St. Augustine's doctrine on grace, conceived as the denial of human freedom to do good and obtain salvation. According to them, salvation will only be possible through divine grace. The Jansenists are also distinguished by their spiritual rigorism and their hostility towards the company of Jesus, the Jesuits, and his casuistics, as against a too powerful power of the Holy See. From the end of the 17th century, this spiritual current was accompanied by a political aspect. The opponents of royal absolutism are gradually identified with the Jansenists, and the clergy assemblies under Louis XIV support the king's positions to condemn them. But at the beginning of the 18th century, when the king wanted to condemn what was called the second Jansenism, thesis of Pasquier Quesnel, who was refugee abroad, an opposition is formed around the Cardinal Archbishop of Paris, who refuses the interference of pontifical power in the internal affairs of the Church of France. The popes are showing a growing severity towards the Jansenists, It is expressed by the proclamation of the Unigenitus Bull in 1713. Far from putting an end to the division of the Church, this bull provokes the coalition, or even the fusion, of several oppositions: Gallican, Ritualist, Jansenist. The power seeks to impose it by force. This ecclesiastical bloc is then joined by the Parliament of Paris, which refuses to register it. After 1715 and the disappearance of Louis XIV, opposition to the bull increased under the Regency and called for a general council. Finally, the bull became the law of the state in 1730, and the power then began to carry out a cleansing of the clergy, which further inflamed the opposition, the positions of the clergy and of the parliament. In this context, Jansenism emerged in the 18th century with the struggle against absolutism and ultramontanism. My conclusion will be this. Logically, Gallican ideas triumphed at the beginning of the revolution. Many Gallicans were members of the Constituent Assembly and made their views triumph by imposing the formation of a constitutional church, that is, a Gallican church, and consequently precipitate the rupture with Rome. Later, Napoleon gave political Gallicanism the flavor of the day by concluding the Concordat in 1802, followed by a deep crisis with the papacy and the establishment of the Declaration of the Fourth Article in state law in 1809. The French 19th century then saw a situation even more pronounced than in the previous period, with on the one hand a state power that became, by its administrations and its judges, the conservatory of Gallicanism, while the Church and the Catholic people were becoming increasingly ultramontane, a situation to which the law of separation of the churches and the state put a certain end in 1905. As we can see in this long history, Gallicanism doesn't simplify anything. It nuances everything. I think it is an excellent subject for an historian because it forces him to be seen from all sides, and because its complexity is that of the world history. Köszönöm szépen.
Some questions or remarks? We are very happy and honored that not only students are here, but some colleagues from the Historical Institute of the Hungarian Academy and the Jesuit archives. I don't know if they have any questions.
A Jesuit professor.
No, not Jesuits, but the collaborators of the archives. If not, I have a little remark that I don't know if you know, and it is known in France that the same year, 1682, the Gallican declarations of thesis were condemned first by the Hungarian episcopacy, led by Prague, the Prague György Szentesén, and it is a declaration, anti-Gallican declaration and confession for the big things. It's not now in France. Gabriel has published an article in Archivum Historicum Civilorum 20 years ago, and there are material in the archives of the Nunciation of Vienna, the Mission area, but lost and not found momentarily, but if I will find it, I'd like to write this program. And after this lesson, we can speak a little bit, it's very, very important. And now
Thank you for your remark, because I think there isn't an history of the gallicanism outside of France. I think the reception of gallicanism, the discussion of gallicanism outside the Kingdom of France, it will be very interesting, I think, to know about this condemnation and discussion of...
From Italy and Spain and anti-declarations,
I don't know.
From part of the book, yes. But yes, this really is a very interesting topic for our this discussion afterwards. Let me make a summary and get kedves kollégák, van még egy-két perc, hogy az előadás végéig nagyon sokat okultunk ebből az előadásból, és majd fölkerül a YouTube csatornánkra, még lehet rajta elmélkedni. Egy-két momentumot emelnék csak ki, ami nekem nagyon érdekes volt. De nem is gondoltuk volna, hogy már az avignoni időszakban és a Székfülöp és a pápaság konfliktusainak időszakára megy vissza ez a különleges francia ideológia. A másik, ami nekem nagyon új volt, hogy tulajdonképpen búvópatakként cseréli egymást egyfajta államegyházi ideológia és a klérus részéről megnyilvánuló konciliarista elképzelés. Azután ami roppant érdekes, hogy a 17. századra magyar viszonylatban is, ugye, egy hagyomány és tradíció jelenik meg, különösen egyéb hivatkozási alapok nélkül, és ez a tradíció és hagyomány az egyaránt Franciaországban és Magyarországon, hogy ami megakadályozza a protestantizmusnak tulajdonképpen a totális térnyerését. Tehát ez nekem eléggé újdonságszerűen hatott, hogy a gallikán ideológia teszi, ugye kvázi olyan nemzeti egyházzá a katolicizmus Franciaországban, amely kötelezővé teszi, hogy a francia királynak katolikusnak kell lenni, hát nem alakíthatja, ugye, már preabszolutista uralkodóként sem az államot a saját vallására, tehát tulajdonképpen kicsit messzire az alapon, hogy egy sajátos rezervátum ecclesiasztikum jelenik meg a gallikán ideológia. Magyarország pedig ugye a főkegyúri jog az, ami meghatározza, hogy protestáns vagy magyar király, de és ezt egy Betlen is belátja, amikor nem koronáztatja meg magát, az teljességgel lehetetlen. Ami számomra még érdekesebb volt, hogy ugye a magyar államegyháziság és a főkegyúri jog nem jelenti azt, hogy ne fogadnának el 17. században. Ugye római kongregáció dekrétumkor az indexen is Magyarországon tiltott könyvek jegyzékét betartják. Az inkvizíció egyik országban sem működik. Ugye maga az állam felelős valamennyire a hitelnek, és még egy pici kiegészítés, hogy Magyarországon is ugye a főkegyúri jog és a magyar államegyháziság alapvetően a katolikus rétus számára egy védendő, egy védőbástya, mint Franciaországban a gallicanizmus, a protestantizmus ellen, de akkor vannak rá utaló jelek, hogy egyfajta belső autonómiát is jelent a magyar államegyházi ideológia, a Habsburg uralkodók előtt egyfajta sajátos rendi önkormányzatiság, hogy még maga az uralkodó sem, ugye, tehet meg mindent az egyházi rendben, mert inkább a korona és az uralkodó személyének a jogairól van szó, és az, hogy a francia kléros, a gallikán ideológia mentén ugye, adokozik olykor a francia koronával, ez nincs olyan párhuzam, ami a magyar, hungarikán és a gallikán eszmék között. Még ízlelgetjük ezt, hogy hungarikán, de érdemes kihangsúlyozni, és tovább gondolni, hogy te számodra mit mondod az előadás, azt pedig majd magadnak, illetve hát ugye a december és januári beszélgetéseikért tudjuk majd elmélyíteni ezeket az versenyen kívül nyilván, tehát nem csak a vizsgakönyvek, hanem inkább a szellem élvezet miatt. Én nagyon szépen megköszönöm, hogy ennyien eljöttünk, és remélem, hogy emlékezetes lesz az alkalom, és a különféle mélységekben is
tanított belül. Úgyhogy még egyszer egy nagy tapsnak köszönjük meg